You don't hear that much about Jeopardy anymore.
No.
I feel like it's fallen off.
It really, I mean, we were there for Alex Trebek.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can
we didn't care about those questions.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever. Yeah.
That's also something where I wonder how much computers and AI have just like made it a little bit less fun. Where I saw the strategy is to pick randomly rather than go straight down the line.
Yeah, there's this guy, I don't remember his name, but I remember like I like know some people who are like Jeopardy enthusiasts, which is like a weird subculture on the internet. And they hated this guy who realized like by picking randomly, he was more likely to like get like bonuses or whatever. And they're like, oh, he's not doing it for the love of the game. Like he's optimized it. It's kind of like, he brought like Moneyball to Jeopardy or something.
Exactly.
And it's like, if you were a baseball fan, you hated that era. And you hated sort of like the sabermetrics guys or whatever. And but I thought like you Jeopardy nerds would love that, right? But I guess not.
Exactly. I loved Moneyball because Theo Epstein, the Red Sox GM, that was my team. And, he used those principles to get us our first World Series.
Yeah.
But
are you from Boston or are you
New Hampshire?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I lived in Boston for a couple of years.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's where you were studying.
Yeah, and I actually lived in like Fenway my first year.
Did you catch a ball?
I never caught a ball, but I used to go to this like Irish bar that was really close to BU's campus. I would go like study there in like the middle of the day, and they had season tickets, and like they would just give them to me sometimes. So I just like saw like a ton of Red Sox games that year. It was great, and that was the year like the second World Series. So like they'd had like the big when was like the first Red Sox World Series?
2004 was the first time we won since 1918.
Okay. So it wouldn't have been the second one, I think, but like I moved there in 2013.
Okay.
So then that was Red Sox in St. Louis.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who was on in that era.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But it was a really great series, and it was like at some point I like really wanted to try to get a ticket to a series game, and it would have been cheaper for me to fly to St. Louis for one of the games than it would have been to get like a Fenway ticket. So yeah.
But this is like refinement culture. It comes for sports, right?
Yeah.
Where like all basketball teams kind of have the same strategy.
Yeah. It you feel like you lose the art a little bit. Yeah.
And it comes for the written word.
It does.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Or a lot of bit.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, we talk, like, we've had a few different podcasts here where I bemoan, there's a moaning session, me and another novelist. But what I like about your channel is you seem to have some solutions, some strategies, if not solutions, strategies.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, first of all, so like I sat here with August Lamb, who's a friend who got rid of her smartphone.
She's like the real Luddite.
That wasn't enough. Got rid of her computer.
Yeah.
So just, she touches the internet when she goes to the public library and logs on.
Yeah.
You haven't done that.
No.
But you care deeply about the life of the mind and reading. So how do you navigate this?
Yeah. So I kind of treat it like you have to find a place to like quarantine that stuff. I have this office at my house. It's in like my backyard, and the only way, like the Wi-Fi doesn't reach that office. So the only way, if I need to like upload a video, is to run this giant Ethernet cable from my house to my office, or take my laptop inside. But like my 2-year-old can start like banging on it. So it's basically this small sanctuary, and I mean it's like what? 10 by 7. It's like a really tiny office. I've crammed it full of books and like some cameras and stuff. But it's just like having this like little space you can have. And not everyone's going to be able to like have like a whole building out like in their backyard. But I think of it a little bit like when Montaigne is like writing his essays, he talks about his tower quite a bit.
Sorry, who is that?
Michel de Montaigne. Like, right.
Okay.
So he's like,
you said it the French way.
Yeah. Montaigne. Yeah. So when Montaigne is writing, like he built this tower kind of on his estate, right? So he's like this very wealthy man, but and the shape of the tower was like there's like 3 levels to it. There was like a chapel underneath it, and then there was like a tower, and then like his like library, or like his like study and his like library, and you can see it, and it's incredibly sparse, right? And it's got this nice kind of grounding too. Like you could like start with like meditation and prayer, and then you kind of ascend further and further. But you go in and it's like there's a lot of books there, but there's like almost nothing. And he talks about how in solitude of place, like his mind can find something to like latch onto in a way that it can't anywhere else. And there's like this weird balancing act, because I'm someone who, like, you know, I'm visiting New York. I always feel like incredibly energized when I'm in New York. I always like want to write a ton. And then I never write a ton when I'm in New York, because it's like there's always so much stuff to go and do, right? So I think it's partly just having these like small places you can kind of like retreat to. I mean, I think there's something like really wise about the fact that if you look at like monastic traditions, so I'm Eastern Orthodox, I don't know if you know this, but like if you look at like sort of the monastic traditions, these like monasteries are pretty far out in, like, in like the wild or something.
Totally.
In Texas, there's like one that like a lot of people in my parish go to, but it's actually in New Mexico. It's like a 6-hour drive for us, and it's out in the desert basically. And it's just like 6 or 7 monastics who like keep slowly building their buildings and like wait for people to bring them spare wood and stuff. And they had to go pretty far out. And, you know, not all of us are going to like set aside all earthly cares and go live in a monastery.
No, although I think, you know, like I had a friend who did that. He was in a monastery in China. And of course I'm like, I'm so jealous.
Yeah,
and he said,
yeah.
You know, it's really surprising how everybody says that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
there's like even people with like no religious persuasion at all
Exactly.
are like, wow, I kind of see like the wisdom of here of like going out. Like Thoreau goes to Walden Pond, and that's only like 2 miles away from the city, right? But it's just far enough that he would have to like spend a couple hours walking.
Yeah.
And that gives him like this solitude of place. And I think
Yes.
finding like some solitude, right? And that's probably like the heart of it, is that we live in this very connected world. We live in this like really busy world where you could never have to be like truly alone if you didn't want to be.
Yes.
You could always be like fed something. And so finding like that little stuff that you can, maybe you have to do what August Lamb does and just like get rid of your smartphone and get rid of your laptop.
I think about it every day.
Yeah. Or even just like turning them off for a little while or something. That gives you like room to explore, like, and like kind of to play in your mind in a way that I think most people have just like completely lost.
Yeah. But I'm interested because, you know, your bread and butter is YouTube. You need the internet for YouTube.
Yeah.
So do you really, you only write outside?
Yeah, pretty much.
And do you plan your videos out there?
Yeah.
And then you come back inside
Yeah.
and rejoin the world.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I even do a lot of stuff like by hand. And that's just to like just minimize the possibility that I'm gonna like want to try to like log on to something or like talk to someone.
Totally.
And it really, that comes from like a place of like I lack self-discipline. Like I lack willpower.
We all do.
Yeah. So,
we all do.
so
These things are designed to
exactly.
destroy our willpower.
You're fighting a losing battle,
you're not,
right?
It's not just you or me.
So I just like say like, it just cut yourself off basically. And then I think it makes it more interesting too, because then I go and like make a YouTube video and like, hopefully I'm saying something that other people like on YouTube aren't saying. Because if they're just getting all their ideas from like watching a ton of YouTube videos,
right,
then all they're going to do is kind of like repeat back the ideas they've already been consuming. And I like to think that like I'm able to bring ideas that maybe people aren't like so salient in the culture, or especially like online culture. And I think people find that like really refreshing.
Do you not get sucked into like looking at all the metrics, like?
Yeah. I mean, you have to look. You have to look
course.
at. Yeah, you have to look at some of them, right?
Yeah.
But I found that like when I've gotten really into like metrics, like when I've really focused on it, like the work has suffered, and so because then what you're gonna do, like YouTube will show you for the last 28 days, here are the channels that your audience mostly watches, and here are the videos they mostly watch too. And it would be really easy to like look at that list of videos and think, oh, I should just make one of those. I should just basically copy, and which is really common on YouTube, is like someone has a hit video, suddenly everyone has a video like this. I did a video like a little over a year ago called Why We Can't Focus.
Yes.
But it's like
I enjoyed it.
It's about like amusing ourselves to death and stuff.
Yes.
Like, and within like 2 weeks after that video kind of blew up, there was one channel that literally put the same title, Why We Can't Focus. I know they were copying me because my title had a period for no reason at the end of it, and his did too. And it had like the same thumbnail text, and like the script honestly looked like he had taken my script and like run it through ChatGPT to like make this different enough or something. And that one was like so blatant that people got mad, and he ended up like changing a lot of the packaging and stuff. But you'll see it over and over again that like,
was his video successful?
No, it really flopped.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think there were like some craft problems there too. Like it was like, it was boring, and it like didn't say anything new. And so people who had already seen my video, like, were going to be like, what's the point? But it's really common for people to like say, oh, this video about this topic did well, so I'll do that topic too. And I'll just like twist it a little bit. And like how much they twist is like kind of a matter of craft. And most people frankly kind of toe that, like they're a little too close to like just doing the same thing.
They heard great artists steal, but they didn't realize you have to steal and you steal and twist.
Yeah, you steal, twist, but like, or like you steal from a lot of different people at the same time, right? Like
exactly.
I mean, so like when I was like reading your book, like there's like some William Gibson influences in there. I think there's like some Pynchon influences in there. And if I said to someone, it's like Gibson and Pynchon, they'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like that's kind of, I don't even know if this is your self-conception, but like this was the stuff that was coming to mind. And it was like, okay, I don't know anyone who's done like Gibson and Pynchon kind of in the same novel. And it's also not like a total cyberpunk world, you know, like, so there's like enough interesting like twists there to like make it worth reading. But most people just think like, oh, cool, that worked, so I'll just do it. And it's frankly, even if they're really successful, I think like they should hate themselves. It's just lame to do it. It's like, it's not fun. It's not creative. And there's just like no reason to like respect the work that you put out.
Yeah.
If you do that. But there's like all these like algorithmic incentives that people think they're playing into.
Yeah. We can get into this in the second part. But no, I mean, I actually wouldn't say Pynchon and Gibson were two big influences.
Okay, interesting.
So,
okay,
I think it's really cool that, you know, it inspire. I just like when it inspires things that I wasn't necessarily thinking of.
Yeah.
But okay, let's take a step back, because you were an academic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what you were doing down in Boston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the Fens. You did a video about why you would not become an academic again.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, so first off, like the odds of me ever becoming one again would just be so low, because it's like I don't do sort of the academic game anymore. But what I found is like I always wanted to like talk about philosophy. I wanted to explore ideas, and it did like matter to me if I could like talk to ordinary people about it. And what I found was that there's like a hunger for like real content about that. There's like so I just did like a year ago, I did a video on Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. It just hit like 500,000 views. So I got 500,000 people to watch a video about Aristotle. I did a video about Plato's Republic like 2 months ago. It's like 250,000 views. So 250,000 people wanted to watch a 90-minute video about Plato's Republic. So that tells me that like there is actually like this hunger for it out in the world, but from people who like wouldn't necessarily think like, oh, I need to go like enroll in school. I need to like go to university for this. And honestly, my experience teaching at a lot of universities, so I was at BU for a little while, so I taught some students there. And then I was at the University of Connecticut. I adjuncted at like one or two places. And there's a sense of like obligation there. They're like, I'm here because I have to be there. And there wasn't ever a sense of like, I'm here because I really love being there. Maybe you get like one or two students out of a group of like 30. And it's like pulling teeth to like get them to read the stuff.
Yeah.
But doing it online at least lets me put it out into the world. It sort of finds the audience that is already going to be kind of like primed to like it. And then I hear from people to say like, I didn't think I would like this. I've never read any of this stuff. I'm now like reading Plato because I like watched one of your videos. And I think like that's probably just a more interesting thing to be doing right now. And I now hear from, when I first started my YouTube channel, I would hear from like academic friends be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why, like, what do you think is like the game here? And now people are like, oh, like I should be doing this too. Like I should start a YouTube channel. I could talk about philosophy too. I could talk about like theory or like whatever it is that interests me. And I think it just becomes like mean, there's something nice about like reaching a lot of people. That feels good. But also it just lets me explore like where I want to go too. Academia has this sort of track that it places you on. You need to publish in certain journals at a certain pace to get tenure. And then you get tenure and you meet all these people who are like, all right, cool. I did this for 7 years. I have tenure. Now I can do what I want. And they never seem to actually do what they want then. Like it's been 7 years of learning how to conform. So then they never actually go do those like books they said they were going to write.
I worked with a writer called Russell Jacoby. He wrote the book, I think it was called The Last Intellectuals, but he would talk about the velvet prison of academia. And that's really what it is. I mean, I think people think also tenure, like you can't get fired.
Yeah.
You can still get fired.
Yeah, you can still get fired.
If you touch any of the third rails, they'll still find a way to make life difficult for you.
Exactly. You can basically stop researching and not get fired.
Right.
You can basically stop doing admin and not get fired. If you say things that your colleagues really don't like, you can get fired. Like it's a possibility.
Right.
So, yeah. And you've learned for 7 years. I mean, even if you've like secretly been like, oh, I'll really talk about the real stuff in 7 years, you've had 7 years of habituation to not do that.
Yeah.
And so like to suddenly flip the switch, I don't think most people are like capable of doing it.
Yeah. So. The universities seem to me to be in a dire situation, especially in the humanities where essay writing can basically be done by AI now.
Yeah,
I think AI can write a better essay than a college freshman who's like especially not very good.
Especially if you're giving them like the most formulaic essay prompts, right? Like it's like, you know, explain like this passage from this philosopher and give 2 counter arguments, right?
Yeah.
Well, like freshmen aren't good at that yet. They haven't learned how to do it. And AI will produce something that's like passable. It might be generic. It might be kind of all the same, especially if you like don't know how to prompt these things. But it will be passable. And frankly, in the humanities, like at Harvard, the most common grade in the humanities is an A.
They just had a piece about this, about just how bad grade inflation.
Yeah, and Harvard wants to stop this. Like they put out like a policy document, like you got to stop this. And
maybe just everybody doesn't get an A anymore.
And the students freaked out. The students were like, don't you know, I think there was like one line from like the Crimson that was like, don't you know what makes a Harvard student is our participation in extracurriculars.
Oh yeah.
It's like, and I was like, I don't think that's how anybody else in the world thinks about Harvard students. Like we think we're like, you're training to be like the intellectual and social elite of the world. This is like, you're going to be like the modern aristocracy. And it turns out like you guys are hanging out in clubs and like not even reading the books that you all say that you read. Like, I don't know, it kind of shows it to be a bit of a sham, but like every school that I was affiliated with had a huge problem with grade inflation. And students would freak out because like they have a self-interest in getting the highest grades possible so that they can like transfer into like, you know, we had this thing when I was at UConn. If you wanted to get into business school and you like didn't get in at first, you really kind of needed like a 3.75 or something to get into the business school afterward. And a lot of them think like that's my ticket to like an upper middle class life if I can get like a business degree. I don't know if that works, but it's what they thought. And so that meant if you gave them a B, suddenly they're like, no, don't you understand? You're ruining my future.
Right.
And so there's a lot of pressure on professors to just kind of give in on that anyways. And then also it's just so disheartening when people don't care enough to like take the material seriously. So you're like, why am I grading them that harshly anyways? Because like, it's not like if I give them an F, they freak out and think I should read better or I should write better. They think I should get mad.
Totally.
And so it's like,
it's been long enough, I can admit. I taught one college course, Intro Creative Writing at NYU while I was getting an MFA there. And I think I did give every single student an A, except for one student who actually never came to class. And I gave him a C. I didn't even fail him.
Exactly.
I kind of like, he was kind of my favorite student, to be honest.
Yeah. I had, I would teach 2 classes a semester when I was at UConn. It was a pretty heavy teaching load for grad students. And I think in my time there, I failed one student. And this was like not turning in a single assignment, not to, and like at that point I didn't have any choice but to fail him. Right. I don't think I ever gave a D, like I probably gave a couple of C's, but like I'd say 80% of the grades that I gave were A's or A minuses. And admittedly, I was like probably just like accepting defeat there. I wasn't like fighting the good fight or whatever. Yeah.
Well, because you don't want to deal with it. You know, it's going to be a problem for you with the admins if they come to the admins. For me, I was teaching a creative writing class, so I felt, okay, you know.
Yeah. When you get teaching evaluations, right? And it's like the number one sort of predictor of teaching evaluations is like average course grade.
Of course, of course.
Right? Yeah. I was like a TA for a logic class. And it was my dissertation advisor who was teaching the class. And it was a hard like intro logic class. He actually like was really demanding of them. And I gave probably more B's in that class than I ever gave in anything that I taught. And it was my lowest teaching evaluation. And I had to like meet with the chair of the department to be like, why do the students hate you so much? You know, are you actually teaching? And I'm like, this is actually maybe the only time that I actually taught. Like that's the difference. And I can like make the case for you. But that was not how the students saw it. And it becomes at some point you just go like, it's just so much easier for me if I just kind of give in. But that's sort of the thing. Like everyone is collectively giving in.
Totally. Yeah. Nabokov used to teach at Cornell. And I think what he did, that's the only solution for the humanities now, which is he would just there'd be no papers, nothing, just a big test midterm. And did you read? It would just ask very detailed questions about like Anna Karenina's figure skating or skating costume. What did she look like on page 218? Did you read the book or did you not read the book? And did you read the book carefully?
Yeah. A lot of people.
That's all you can do now.
Yeah. A lot of people I know are basically going back to just blue books for everything.
Right.
So like the in-class essay is becoming like a big thing rather than like the take-home essay because it's the only way to test like, did you actually read the stuff?
Yeah.
And half of it's just going to be literally, comprehension questions.
Yeah.
Of course, like most of them can, like their eyes can look at the page, but like how much they're comprehending, I have no clue. But it's basically the only way. Every professor I know has basically abandoned take-home assignments and is just doing these big in-class things, which is like probably a lot of pressure for students, but will probably benefit them in the long run.
You did a video which maybe could be useful for our new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, if he's watching this.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if he controls this at all. I'll have to look that up. His voice can be heard on this.
Yeah.
You did an essay about why people can't read anymore. And your answer to that was surprising to me. I had never heard about any of this early education stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Why can't people read?
Yeah. So the solution that everyone wants to say is like it's smartphones that have done it to us. And I think that's like a contributing factor. But the sort of, I think, consensus that's now emerging with like education researchers, I mean, this was like a hard fight, was that for a really long time we taught with like phonics, which is just this really boring way of teaching reading where it's like you learn
see, spot, run.
Yeah. And you learn basically how to sound out words, and then you people will guide you through it and teach you all the exceptions because English is weird. And then you kind of build meaning out of that, because like reading's this multi-step process where like first you have to comprehend words and then sentences and then passages and then like integrate them into this like larger model of the world that you're building or something. And we moved to this thing called whole language learning for a long time, which had this idea. And it feels like it was like coming out of like the 60s and like the 70s. And so it feels very of the time, where it was like actually naturally like everyone can read.
See, all our troubles go back to these kind of hippy dippy.
And so what we need to do is like,
and now we're just reaping all the negative effects.
And it took a long time, right? But I was like, what we have to do is make people feel like good when they're on the page. And actually students are able to like naturally read, and they need to learn how to like learn things from context. But what you did was like throw them into the deep end and not give them any of those kind of like foundational skills. So the biggest declines I think that we've seen around the country, and actually probably around the world, because this was like a worldwide fad in a lot of places, was that just like foundational literacy, like that basic ability to like read a sentence and kind of grasp its meaning, was the stuff that decayed. And this was like kind of a big bifurcation. Like some students still did really well, probably because they were like being taught this stuff by their parents or
exactly. Berenstein Bears, C-spot run.
You know, they're learning how to read. You know, I have a 2.5-year-old, and like I read to him every day, and like I'm like kind of sounding out words in front of him, and then hoping that like, you know, in a year or two he's gonna like really pick it up on his own, and like we'll start getting a little more intentional. But a lot of people like didn't don't do that kind of stuff. So then you'd have these students who maybe weren't being read to a lot, weren't being taught these skills anywhere else. And then they were expected to just like learn to read on their own. And the thought was like through context and through like positive reinforcement, they would just like get it. And it just didn't seem to happen kind of at all. And then going on to that, we then kind of move into the era of like standardized testing where, you know, I remember like I took like the AP English exam when I was in high school. And they didn't ask us about any of the books that we read during the year because like they couldn't guarantee that we'd all read the same books because like everyone would revolt if there was like a single AP English curriculum or something. So what they'd have to do is like give us a passage and then you'd have to like write a couple of essays about the passages. And then so students started being taught like passages instead of books.
Exactly.
So they're
and
like
the SAT too, that's what they would do. They would say, skim the reading material, then read the questions,
yes,
and go and see if you can pick out the information you need.
Exactly. And it's this really like spotty way of reading. It does not prepare you to like read a novel, especially a novel that's like purposefully dense at times or is like dealing with stuff like there's stuff going on under the surface, or God forbid there's like 3 storylines that somehow weave together, you know, like you wouldn't build those skills at all. So then you get students who go to college and they say like, we just can't read the amount of reading that you want to assign. There were professors at UT Austin who were saying like, you know, I used to assign 6 Shakespeare plays in a semester. Shakespeare's not that long. All right. The language is like a little weird, but like you can muddle through it.
Yeah.
And they would read it and go like, we can't read all of this. It's just too much. Like I think Hamlet is, I believe, the longest. It's either Hamlet or Macbeth is the longest, but I think it's Hamlet is the longest Shakespeare play. And students were like, no, like we can't do it. It's like 45,000 words. Yeah. It's a novella, you know, like if you were putting it in sort of novelistic terms. And they were saying like, we're not prepared for this. And so the professors kind of cave and they go, all right, I'm going to also assign a movie. Yeah. That's like a production.
You can watch the Hamlet movie with Ethan Hawke.
Yeah. And
is it Ethan Hawke?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think he's Hamlet.
But we're going to, you know, you can watch that and then maybe look at the text too if you like need to pick some stuff up. So they never built those skills going into college. And then we just started saying like, we're going to meet them where they are. And then I think another thing that kind of emerged with that is that everyone started talking about like alternative literacies.
Yes.
This came up a lot actually in the early 2000s.
Alternative literacy. It's a funny term.
Yeah. Right. And like there was this stuff, I think like the Atlantic published stuff about this or the New Yorker in like the early 2000s that what we were all doing was actually giving ourselves like ADHD, like by engaging with ever shorter content. And the way they talked about it though was like, oh, this is actually good. Like this is just another way of like being literate. And we're all just kind of going to develop this literacy, which is like more fitting of our media environment.
Now we've all got this new really special literacy, which involves not being able to read anything at all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very alternative literacy.
Exactly, right? And then we need to like work on cultivating like media literacy or something. Yeah. And I was like, I think we should maybe focus on literacy first. Like, you know, there was this huge move in like English departments to talk about like everything is text. You know, a statue is text and like stuff like to be interpreted. And it's like, that's cool, but you should probably make sure they can read text.
Yeah. Okay. So did you hear this, Mamdani? You heard it here first.
Yeah.
We need to bring back phonics.
Bring back phonics, man.
I think he can do that.
Yeah, I mean, at least he can talk to
Have you been following the mayoral election in New York?
Not by choice.
Okay, but it's everywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I live in Austin, and it's like, I saw people walking in Austin with like...
Mamdani stickers. Hot girls for Mamdani.
Yeah, a lot of like hot girls for Mamdani, like t-shirts.
Yeah.
And I felt a little disgusted by this, because like, I don't... like...
Because New York's the center of the world.
Yeah. It was like, I live... thousands of miles away from New York.
Yeah.
I should not have to care about who the mayor of New York is. And yet, like, for some reason, people wanted me to care. And the people in my city were like, they cared. And I'm like, did you guys vote? We had a mayoral election, or like we had a big city council election on the same day. I think I saw more people from Austin like posting about like New York's race. And I thought like, this is like total abdication of responsibility, where you think like, if you're in New York, I think like you should probably care who the mayor is. It's going to like help run the city. And like, you know, if you have kids, it's going to like affect them quite a bit. If you're in Austin, it does not matter. Unless deep down you're like, one day I'm going to move to New York. or like one day, New York's the center of the world. So I have to care.
it's one of the first truly hyper real elections, I think, where it's an election more as a proxy for like a social media campaign. I mean, in fairness, okay, he hasn't even had a chance to govern yet. If he does a great job, then great. But you can tell that we're sort of building on AOC, building on George Santos. This like, politician as stepping stone to social media star, or maybe those just become the same thing.
I think it's more that they're just like unified.
They're just unified.
I think like, do you know who David Shore is? Like the political researcher.
Sounds familiar.
He was this guy who he does basically like, he's a like super analytics driven guy who works for the Democrats, and he is like pretty far left, but it's sort of this idea that we should have like we should just like look at what the data says, and then we're going to kind of like get the Democrats to like talk about the stuff that the data says, and then we can like push to the left further and further here. That's kind of his like big end game, right? I don't think this wasn't like super public during it, but afterward, like the media company that did all of Mamdani's branding and stuff came out, and they're like, oh yeah, we worked with them, like with, I think it's like Blue Rose Research. So like they were like partly driving that. And so those are like analytics guys. Those are people who are doing like deep research to see what can go viral, I mean, Mamdani's good on camera. Like he's really good on camera.
Right. So you combine that analytic power with a very good person on camera, and you can sort of mix and match. That's the formula. I guess that's always been the formula for politics.
But they I think they were able to just do it better than probably anybody has been able to. I mean, it helps, probably him like deciding I'm going to like muddle my way through like 17 different languages to like make videos and stuff. Gave people a sense of like, oh, he's like speaking to me, right? And he's really good at looking right at the camera. And like feeling like he's actually talking to you. Like, I mean, like he is like trained on social media. He was like a SoundCloud rapper a decade ago, right?
Big Cardamom. What was it? Young Cardamom? You guys don't know? I think it's Young Cardamom.
And like it was like, and he was like doing that grind to like try to break out as like a SoundCloud rapper. And so it's like he built all those skills, and then it turned out to be like really effective when you actually just like want to go and campaign for mayor.
It's shifted from like, because people would say about Bill Clinton, like when he shakes your hand and looks into your eyes, you just feel like you're the most important person in the world. But now I think it's more important to look directly at the camera and make the viewer think that he's the most important person in the world.
Like I think Clinton's big breakout like media moment was he played saxophone on
on SNL. Cool jazzy president.
Like this weird like Southern guy who like went to Oxford but plays the saxophone, like cool. Mamdani didn't have to do anything even like that cool. He could just be like, I'm looking right at the camera. I'm telling you what I care about.
Well, he protested. He was like, he got angry.
So he's got like, he's like completely independent of like how much you like the guy. Like he's just really, really good at like being on camera and like cultivating a certain kind of image in a way that like, I don't know, is it Curtis Silva? Is it Silva or Sliwa? Okay, cool. I'm glad I didn't know that.
Right, Sliwa.
But wears like the red beret and stuff. Like he's got some branding, but like he's nowhere near as like talented in this way. And like Andrew Cuomo might be like the least charismatic person I've seen.
Totally. He's old politics of just like,
he's like, no, like my dad was like,
like, I'm the one. Like, it was like Hillary style politics.
And like my brother is like a media personality, and it's like we're like a dynasty. Why wouldn't I be mayor? Right. Exactly. And like Eric Adams is probably funny. He's like funnier than any of them, but he's like so weird. And like goes off on like these strange tangents that it's like he doesn't quite know how to like cultivate that image or like curate it in the right sort of way. And I guess that might be like the word for it. Like Mamdani is like, he's a highly curated guy.
Totally.
And there's like clearly that kind of curation that we all learn to do when like we're presenting ourselves on social media constantly. And he was like able to see like, oh, I can do that same kind of curation. Like, for my political.
We're definitely going to start having some YouTuber mayors, senators, presidents.
There's like some TikToker who is now part of like the European Union Parliament. And he makes TikToks about like the debates they're having and stuff. It's going to keep happening. I mean, I think if anyone thinks like, oh, this is just like a weird aberration.
They're like, no. It's we're only accelerating.
It will only be TikTokers running the EU in like 10 years.
reminds me what we were talking about before with education. Have you looked at University of Austin? Do you care about what they're doing? Is that interesting to you?
You know, early on, I've actually visited them once. I had like a mutual friend, like I toured it and stuff. And they're kind of interesting for like a few reasons. I'm like skeptical of the academic project they're doing. Like they post like their curriculum sometimes.
I've never looked at it.
It looks so strange. It looks kind of like it's driven by their very rich investors. So like they had a seminar on capitalism, and it was like a Thomas Sowell book and like a Bitcoin book. And it was like, all right, you might include those, but it was like weird that like those were the only books on this. I mean, maybe they see themselves as like, we're providing the alternative that you wouldn't get at any other university or something. So I'm like a little curious about like what they actually think the education at the University of Austin is like. One thing that is interesting about them is like they're very good also at curating an image for themselves. When I like visited, they have like podcast studios. I went upstairs, like they're building it out, and they're like building out a whole place for speakers. And they're like, I was talking to their video guys, like, oh yeah, here's all the changes we're going to make. So like the lighting's perfect. So we can always do like these big speeches, and it'll be like perfectly presented to the world. And they might be like the first like media first university.
Totally. It's the same thing. We had politics as social media. Now we have university as social media.
Exactly.
Software is eating the world.
Exactly. They're like, and they're just in 2 stories of like an old building in downtown Austin. They're kind of like, eventually I think they'll have like a campus, like seem to be doing well. And they're like, they just announced they're never going to have charge tuition.
Amazing.
Because someone gave them like $100 million, and their bet basically is like, we'll have a small enough class, and like they'll go on to be like wealthy enough that they'll just like keep donating.
I'm very supportive of these experiments. I mean, I think the situation is bad enough that God bless, anybody who wants to try to do a new type of university and do it better. I have a friend who just got a very nice package to actually transfer to there from a very like prestigious traditional university. And he did it.
Yeah.
So it's like
you get to live in downtown Austin, and you don't pay any tuition. And so it's like, if you're in your 20s, you can probably find a way to afford living in downtown Austin with like doing very little work.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not paying tuition, right? Like, and like you can go and like, they have a way of like, they get a lot of like really big names to come in and like do speaking things. And like, the class sizes are so small that you actually get to meet these people. So, I mean, they are doing some interesting stuff. And I am like supportive of basically any group of people that want to try to do something new, rather than just like looking at the failed old model and thinking like, God, couldn't that work again? I think we're just like so far out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, education funding never really hit we've never hit pre-2008 levels for higher education, and universities basically compensate for that with just like encouraging you to take on more and more debt. So then you go and take on $40,000 of debt to go to a state school, and then you realize like, what kind of job could I possibly get? And then you're like strapped with all this debt for the rest of your life. And I can see for a lot of people, they're going to look at it and say like, this is a really bad deal. It's like a really, really bad deal. And I actually don't care about reading the stuff that they want me to read or whatever. So I think anyone who's trying to like disrupt it, to use like the tech phrase, to like, or like to find something new, I'll at least be like cautiously optimistic or like interested in what they're doing.
I was thinking about it because I was watching your video about education. I just had an idea. Maybe you could split up, like you can choose which university, like you could take like a big university, say like the University of Florida, and then like some people just get to go to the university that's just administrators and parties. And like, and frats. And then some people get to go to the actual college, and that's like way cheaper. And like learn stuff.
I went to Ohio University for my undergrad. And what's weird about that, it's like, it's kind of renowned as like a party school, in the foothills of Appalachia, but it has this tiny little college inside of it called the Honors Tutorial College.
So you kind of actually did this.
And so I did this. And now a couple years after I graduated, now everyone who goes there gets a full ride. So like they only pay for housing basically. And the way it works is like, you have to apply like your first year to get in. It's like pretty hard. It's like 200 students in a school of 20,000. And all of your main classes in your major are tutorials with professors. And the professors tend to really like those because they're like, you can do interesting stuff and you get to be a little more collaborative. Like, I really want to do Nietzsche, and there's no Nietzsche seminar. Could we read like 6 books by Nietzsche? And they'll be like, cool. And then like you would negotiate like how long the paper has to be, and that would affect like how many credit hours you got for like those tutorials. And I loved that system. And it was, kind of this like, within a very, very large university, there was this like tiny little like remnant of people who went on to be like also like to really punch above their weight. You know, like someone I graduated with is now like an astrophysics professor at UT Austin after going to Cambridge for his PhD. A bunch of them like went to med school or like went to like to have like legal careers.
Yeah.
And I bet if you like compared that to like the average graduate of Ohio University that year, they're like doing way more interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So that actually exists.
It actually exists in some ways. The university as a large kind of always hates that though.
Yeah.
So they always hate these like little tiny
Why do they hate them?
I think there's a sense of like separation or like superiority, right?
Yeah.
So there was always this like thought, like we had like a little house that was on campus that only like HTC students could go to hang out in. And it was like where our admin was, but also it had like a common room where we could hang out and like do events. And I think there was this sense of like, oh, like, do you think you're better than us? There was like this
low key, yes.
Yeah, there was this like article that ran in the student newspaper around the time I was there that said it was like this rumor that we all sat around, and I was there like from 2009 to 2013, and called everyone else normies. And I think that at the time they thought like that was like much more of a pejorative. Now it's
right-wing dog whistle.
Yeah. And it was like one, I don't think we actually did. I think we started after the article came out because it became like a joke, right? But this sense of like, oh, like why isn't like the university good enough for you? But the truth is, like almost everyone who went to that, like to the HTC within OU, was like, if that didn't exist, I wouldn't be here. Like I would have gone somewhere else.
Right.
I would have gone to like some private school that like let me in. You know, half of them got into Oberlin or something, and like I would have gone to Oberlin instead.
Right.
But this gave me something interesting to do, and that's why I went.
So, okay, we've talked a lot about why things are so bad and media, but what gives you some hope about the future of the life of the mind for you or for people in general? And also, you're doing these great YouTube seminars on Plato and Aristotle. Why do you care about this? Why should other people care?
Yeah. So what I think is really cool about this like present moment is that as like institutions basically have like completely given up on cultivating the life of the mind for people, or showing you like why it's worthwhile, there are people who still like have that hunger. And maybe it's not going to be like a huge number of people, in the grand scheme of things. 500,000 people is not a lot, right? But there are people who care about this stuff, right? And the trick is to just like, how do you reach them? Like, how do you find it? And I'm really optimistic actually about this idea of renewed autodidacticism, like people who want to take this stuff seriously. Virginia Woolf had this series of like criticism that she published in 2 volumes, The Common Reader. And it was like writing about like these great books, or sometimes books she hated, like about Joyce or something. And, Woolf like didn't really like Joyce.
Vulgar.
Yeah.
Terribly vulgar.
But she writes them not for academics, but for like other, writers. And, Woolf was like that first generation of women who could even like go to college in the UK, goes to like a women's school that's like attached to like UCL or something like that. And so her life is like, she's building this literary career outside of these institutions that were excluding her. And she's like, cool, I'll just keep doing that then. And like, I love Woolf's fiction. And then she brings like this really great criticism as well. And people kind of responded to that really well. I think the Common Reader like series was pretty popular in her lifetime. It's now kind of hard to find it in print, but I think you're going to see like more of that stuff. There's this guy named Adam Walker. He's on Substack. He's got a YouTube channel. He's a PhD from Harvard in English literature. And he mostly writes on like spiritual poetics and like the romantics. And he basically couldn't find a tenure track job coming from Harvard too. It's like,
it doesn't surprise me.
Things are that bad. And so then he now like does this, and he runs like a little poetry school online that people pay like $25 a month. And so he only has to get a certain number of students to make a living. Right. And he'll just do like 6 weeks on Wordsworth. And I talked to him about it, and he talks about it like, these people are not people you would expect to want to take 6 weeks on Wordsworth. And there's like 2 lectures a week and stuff. Like, he puts a lot of work into it. It's like, but they love it. Like, they want to engage with it, because I think a certain number of people want to be taken seriously, and they don't feel like the institutions of the world are taking them seriously. So they're like, if you can give that to them. And that's really cool because it allows a certain amount of like self-selection too. These aren't people who got like put on a track by their parents to go to an elite school.
Sure.
These are people who maybe some of them did, and then they realized like, oh shit, like I didn't read anything when I was at Harvard, or they went to a state school because their parents told them like you're always going to go to Michigan because we're a Michigan family or something, and they hated it. But now like a little bit later in life, they can like discover it, and they're just really into it. And the culture basically left this giant void to be taken for you to be taken seriously, yep. or for you to be challenged,
yep.
right? To say, hey, if you want to get the most out of this 6 weeks on Wordsworth, you actually have to read a lot of Wordsworth.
Yep.
And you tell it to certain people and they go like, oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. That's going to be hard, but I'll do it. And I think that's the only way forward. Like next year on my Substack, I do like these read alongs of like Aristotle and stuff. Next year I did a theme for the entire year. It's like the philosophy of technology. Your novel's one of the readings in there, like, because we got to have like someone who's not incredibly anti-AI, like that's one of the things that's kind of interesting with the novel, right? It's like takes it seriously too. So I was like, we're going to add that in here too. And I like to mix novels into the readings. And some people are like, that's a lot of stuff you're asking us to read. Like it's a lot. It's like 2 or 3 books a month. I know most of my readers won't read all 3 books every month, but some of them will, or they'll read the one a month that they can, or they'll keep up. And for those people who are like so into it, they're going to get something out of it that frankly they wouldn't even get at a university because you wouldn't read that many books in a seminar. So if you just like follow along on that stuff, you can learn a lot, and you're going to be kind of like learning with me. A lot of those books that are on there, like I've only skimmed or I haven't read fully. And so it'll be a sense of like, I'm going to be doing what the best professors did when they were at seminars, which is like, I'm exploring this idea with you, and I'm like inviting you into the conversation. And if you can invite people into that conversation, you'd be surprised how many people actually want to take part.
Yeah. Yeah. My book, you can read that in 2 days. It's a page turner. Don't worry, kids.
Short chapters. Yeah. It's kind of like each chapter's a scene. Yeah.
There's, it's got some meat in it. Don't get me wrong, but you'll just be flipping the pages.
Yeah.
What can we learn from Aristotle today?
So I think the biggest lesson you learn from Aristotle, there's like sort of 3 probably big lessons, right? One is like famously Aristotle talks about moderation, and everything in Aristotle kind of comes down to proportion. So when he talks about we need to find like equality between things, he always means proportion. It's never like a strict equality. And what that means, I think, is like you just take cases as they are presented to you and then try to find some kind of middle way through all of them. And he, one of the regimes that he speaks so fondly of in the politics is a polity. And polity is like the good form of democracy. And he basically says it takes democracy and oligarchy, which he thinks are both like deviant forms of regimes. And it kind of just takes the best of both of them and it makes it work. And he says, if you want to make a polity work, you need to have what he calls the middling class. These are people who aren't too rich and aren't too poor. They have to be in charge. Why is that? Because if you have the rich in charge, they can get like the middling class to like team up against the poor. And if you have the poor in charge, they can get the middling class to team up against the rich. But if you have the middling class in charge, the factions are so opposed to each other that we can't like descend into like raw factionalism. But like you also
is
see
that what you think we have now, or do we have?
No, we have nothing like that.
Do we have a democracy, or do we have an oligarchy?
I think we basically just have an oligarchy. Yeah, it's got kind of the guise of a democracy, but basically everyone in Congress goes to the same 6 schools, or everyone on the Supreme Court goes to the same 2 law schools. I think Amy Coney Barrett's the only one who like went to Notre Dame, and when she was nominated, people were like, she didn't go to Yale. She didn't go to Harvard. Like, is she good enough to be a Supreme Court justice? On the basis of that, I mean, so I think we do have this kind of like highly credentialed elite that kind of wants to reproduce itself, and I think it has a lot of like the markers of an oligarchy. But you find like this sense of proportion in like everything that Aristotle writes about, like the ethical life too, and that's already kind of useful because I think we tend to think in oppositions or in binaries or just in extremes, and that sense of proportion can help quite a bit. The second lesson, though, I think I was going to bring the middling class stuff in there to make it a third, but it's kind of the same with the proportion. But the second big lesson is that for Aristotle, the highest form of life is the life of contemplation. And he uses this kind of funny phrase in the Nicomachean Ethics, which says that just as we go to war so that we can have peace, we labor so that we can contemplate. And it's like this kind of inversion of how we think about the world now, where like work is the thing that's worth doing. And like this idleness or this leisure stuff for the life of the mind is like this useless like garbage that we can like, it's kind of fun to do on the weekends or something. But he's like saying, no, like the entire order has to be inverted. And how he builds out the contemplative life is pretty robust. Like it involves being a kind of like amateur, meaning like you're driven by the love of it.
Yes.
Scientist, philosopher in a community as well. He thinks that friendship is like essential to the contemplative life as well. So even though technically philosophy is like self-sufficient, he thinks that by having like true friends, you can contemplate together. And I think that's what people, when they're like looking to like have a kind of life of the mind today, they need this sense of like some small community of people who are just in it, right? And like we're gonna think together, and even though a lot of it's gonna still be solitary, we're gonna like come together. And I think this is one of those opportunities that like places like the internet actually give us like a chance to do it in a way. You know, I'm hoping that's one of those like positive parts of the internet as well, that you can build these kind of alternative communities that are highly self-selecting and dispersed, and in a way that, you know, if you like, maybe if you live in New York, there's like enough concentration of people that you could like get something together. But if you live in like Minneapolis, who knows? Or you like live in some small town.
No, I think that's true. I mean, I had this friend Varun. He was like 19, and he did a Deleuze reading group on Discord during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And you know, he's just like messing around, and it got like 3,000 people.
Right.
I mean, it's,
people are into
sort
it.
Of cool.
Yeah. There are 3,000 people who want to read Deleuze.
100%.
They don't live next to each other, and they won't all show up to your house on a Thursday night.
No.
But if we can meet online, it's like one way to find those people.
Yeah. The only thing I worry about is like, I know there's just so many of these little pockets of intellectual life online. I feel like I wish there could be more centralization actually online, and that like the good people could sort of team together more. But the incentives online are to, you know, rather than to do a magazine, it's to do something on your own. Rather to have a film studio, it's to be an individual YouTuber. This is very liberating and can be quite remunerative for people who are good. I think that I wish there was some centralizing force to get the good people together, because I think the returns would be exponential.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And what's weird though is that when people like wanted to make a magazine now, or like an online magazine, they tend to think like, all right, what's our like editorial perspective, right? And what's the kind of like party line that we're all going to kind of like write within? And those can produce like interesting pieces, but like, could I really tell you the difference between like N+1 or like The Drift?
No, of course not.
No. And they're all kind of like, they'll have some interesting stuff. I just read one from Eric Baker, I think, a piece in The Drift that I thought was good. But like, are those like distinctive enough, right?
Yes.
And I think I was talking to someone else about this, so I'll admit I'm stealing their example. Like kind of like the classic era of like The Village Voice, where you would have like these incredibly distinctive writers. All on the same pages, kind of arguing with each other. I think that's the thing you kind of need to model. It kind of goes against the modern incentives, though, where people want to feel like they're buying into like a mission.
Well, exactly. I don't know if you know this. I started a magazine called The Mars Review, and that was the idea. You know, G.K. Chesterton said something like, when I want to sell a piece, I write a conservative article and I write a liberal article, and I make an envelope to the conservative magazine and one to the liberal magazine, and then I mix up the envelopes. The idea being that, you know, that was part of the remit of a publication, was to publish contradictory things within the publication. And so that's what I tried to do with the Mars Review of Books. But you're exactly right. The problem is there's so much benefit on the internet to having a cadre, to having a team that will boost everything you do. If you publish on both sides, you don't, you're kind of, you don't get a cadre boosting you.
Exactly. And like people also wonder, like, should I support these people? Because like I really hate this article. And I think a lot of the time when people decide to like pay for something online, it's not because necessarily they want to read more of it. It's because they're like, I like the mission.
Exactly.
And I think there's like huge numbers of people who pay for my Substack. I mean, I don't have that many paid subscribers, but like who pay for my Substack, but would never come to like the Zoom calls I do to like discuss the text. Right. But I think they do it because they're like, I like what Jared's doing. So dropping him $8 a month is like a way to like keep it going.
Exactly.
Right. And if you have this kind of like mixed voices, you go like, well, what's the mission? Right? Like what's the war that they're fighting? You know, and that's like, it's really hard to break through. I don't know how anybody can solve that problem. Yeah. Let's pause for a second. I have to pee again.
Do it. Maybe this is a good time for we can switch.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.